Hey out there, Internet. This is G Divine, once again, video blogging from my couch in my dorm room at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. The last video blog I did was about the Aqua Teen Hunger Force thing, so I decided to keep on that sort of pop culture, current events trend and talk about the latest scary thing happening out there now, which is Britney Spears and her whole head-shaving meltdown. I grew up in the 90s. I'm very familiar with the work of Britney Spears, despite the fact that I am completely morally against everything that she represents, you know, in terms of the politics of the music industry and the whole notion of creating identities for art and for music as opposed to just letting it happen and having something natural come out. The Menudo effect of putting together some Frankenstein creation that you think will sell more records as opposed to doing something honest and true and real. I'm totally against that, but you know, I was 10, 11, so you know, that was the hot record to have, so I had it. And I've kept, you know, sort of an interest over the couple of years. I went through the whole thing of thinking of her as, you know, the Antichrist of my, you know, culture. Then I realized that nobody really should give a shit because she's not really that important. She's this girl who would be white trash if she hadn't gotten famous, blah blah blah, and she wound up becoming white trash anyway, just that it happened in the public eye instead of, you know, happening somewhere in the backwoods of Louisiana. So anyway, this latest development in the saga of Britney Spears, she had another baby, flashed her vagina on television, she broke up with her husband, her second husband I might add, let's not forget the one she was married to for like 8 hours, and she had a nervous breakdown, shaved her head, and attempted suicide. All the while she was attempting suicide, apparently she was referring to herself as the Antichrist. Now here's the thing to think about. She was 17 when she got her record deal. 17 years old. When most of us were 17 years old, we were going through the trouble and turmoil and strife of high school, going every day and having somebody tell you what a piece of shit you are, beating the crap out of you, mentally and physically. Britney Spears never had that. She immediately went from high school, probably being the prettiest girl in her high school, to being an international superstar. So, here's my thought. That process of being told that you are a piece of shit and having the crap kicked out of you and being told that you're worthless and no one will ever love you and having your entire life trivialized, that's important, psychologically essential to creating who a human being is. If you don't go through it in high school, you will go through it later because you can't be a completely developed individual until you've gone through massive amounts of personal turmoil and strife. So Britney Spears, 17 years old, is walking around the planet having everyone tell her how great she is. And then, 2003, 2004, the pop bubble bursts. NSYNC's not hot anymore. Backstreet Boys break up. Christina Aguilera is being publicly blackballed for being a slut. And Britney Spears is a laughingstock. People started getting into indie and emo, and that became the it hot thing. We go from mass-produced pop music like the Spice Girls and Britney Spears and NSYNC to indie and emo. Still just as mass-produced in most cases, but still more heartfelt. People are actually playing their instruments. And part of the appeal that is pressed on the masses is your parents want you to listen to Britney Spears. That's saying safely within the lines. So condemn that. You know, fuck Britney Spears. She is the Antichrist. So the epitome of the whole really venomous, evil, destructive nature of the music industry. The whole indie emo thing is, you know, being against the music industry and DIY. When you have the whole pop star concept, you know, watch American Idol, it's exactly the opposite of DIY ethics. You're pretty, and being pretty is more important than being musically talented. You can sing well, and singing well is more important than being able to write heartfelt music. I mean, Tattoo. Look at Tattoo, for example. Two hot 17-year-old girls who could sing. So they carted in, you know, a 40-year-old record label exec to write songs about being a teenage lesbian. That's pop. But with this new movement of, you know, you gotta be DIY and you gotta do your own thing, they needed a face to slap on the evil side of that. A poster child for what was wrong with the music industry. And who would better serve that purpose than Britney Spears? When the bubblegum pop bubble burst in the mid-2000s, Britney Spears got demonized. Suddenly, everyone who had loved her and told her she was great was looking at her like she was this monster, this, you know, white trash slut. She became just a joke. And it's finally hitting her. I mean, she's finally hit rock bottom because in addition to all the public hate, she's lost her husband. K-Fed is such a piece of shit. She's lost her dignity. People are calling her a bad mother because of this whole incident a couple of years ago where she had the baby on her lap. I mean, that was stupid. But let's face it, hundreds of really bad parents do that every day. If Britney Spears wasn't Britney Spears, nobody would have mentioned it twice. Nobody would have even known that happened. But she's in the limelight, so everything she does that can be put under scrutiny is exacerbated and magnified and turned into some sort of horrible crime. So she's just crushed in this pressure vacuum. She used to be, you know, the darling of American culture, and now she's either this demon who represents everything that was evil about pop music, or on the flip side, she's a white trash joke. So she's completely had this meltdown. When you think about it, I mean, it makes perfect sense. This poor woman's been put through every single up and down that you can possibly think of. She really doesn't deserve this. People who know me, you'd think I'd be the last person to stick up for Britney Spears. The last thing she needs is people scrutinizing her meltdown. Think about it. When you were a kid and you finally snapped, everybody had that moment where you stopped being a child and became who you are now. You're not who you were when you were in high school. You're not who you were when you were 14 and 15 years old. She stayed in that stage because she was told to stay in that stage by people who were trying to sell her identity. Her identity has been sold, it has been raped, it has been bastardized, it has been strip-mined until all that's left is this hollow shell of a person being publicly humiliated, and it's not fair. It's not fair to anybody to have to go through that kind of torture and misery, especially in a public arena. At least when you were a kid and you finally got pushed over the brink, when the pressure and the stress and the bullying and the intense hatred that seeped through your veins finally built up to a breaking point, and you finally had your moment and you became who you are. At least you got your privacy. Everything that she goes through is broadcast on a public screen. There is nothing that she does that will not be scrutinized down to the tiniest detail, and that's really unfair. And yet people wonder, what the hell happened to Britney Spears? She seems so nice. It's very simple. You can't stay nice that long. It's the reason why the kids with the tattoos and the eyeliner and the funny haircuts are okay, upstanding citizens, and the ex-pop stars and ex-child stars are getting a machete and going down to the post office. That's what happens. You let that pressure build inside yourself, and eventually you just snap, and all sanity is completely lost on you. So, I mean, if you look at Britney, I mean, she's finally becoming a real person. It's just that simple. She's always been a person, but she's ceasing to be a child. She's ceasing to be, you know, someone you put in a commercial. And she's becoming someone who's finally suffered enough damage to understand what life is all about. And I offer her all the support that I can. On a lighter note, I'd like to add that the whole head shaving thing is actually looking pretty 80s hardcore punk rock. And she's gone all Ian MacKaye on her asses. But seriously, you know, anybody out there who's gonna give Britney a hard time for, you know, what she's done in the past, you should really rethink that. She's a different person now, and she needs the support of everyone who can ever even understand what it's like to be scrutinized. She needs support. She's finally, you know, she's coming out of the cocoon now, and hopefully her hair will grow back in and she'll regain some of her sanity and she'll be able to understand what it's like to be real. Alright, so that's the end of my blog. Okay, so keep watching, and I'll probably come back, you know, you'll be sure and hear from me the next time I'm pissed off about something. Alright, later on. Keep it